The object module in Objeq Delay 2 is used to filter the input signal through acoustic resonators in order to change their tonal color. You can get a wide variety of effects by changing the characteristics and modulating some of the parameters. Here I've got this drum loop sending to a bus, and I've got Objeq Delay on the destination. I'm going to bring it in, and I'm using the rectangular membrane here, the first object. Now I can use the frequency knob to set the root frequency, the first partial of the object. And this relates to the size of the object. The lower it is, it would be a bigger object. And the higher it is, the smaller the object. Now the decay knob sets the quality factor, in other words, the resonance. How long the partials will take to fade out. And the material is the decay time of the lower partials is longer than the higher partials as it's turned counterclockwise, and turning it up increases the decay time of the higher frequencies. And then we can use the formant to affect the relative amplitude of the different partials. Here we're exciting the edge of the object. And here we're exciting it more closer towards the center. And here I can invert the frequency response of the object. In the negative mode like this, it's producing notches. And here it's producing peaks. Now it gets interesting when you modulate these parameters. I'm going to start with the envelope follower that I have set to modulate the frequency. And then we can use the attack and release to affect the characteristics of that sweeping that's happening. And this will amplify how much is being sent to modulate the parameter. And I'm modulating only in a positive direction here since the initial value is at about 10 o'clock. I can go above and below, or just below. But here it's just above. And I'm going to modulate the same parameter, the frequency here, with the rectangle in both directions. With this turned all the way up, it's almost like a sample and hold type of effect. I'm going to bring the filter in, just to do a little bit of gentle low cut. And because it's on a return, I can delay it and have the original playing through the original channel strip. Here I have the balance set all the way to wet only. Get a rhythmic kind of delay like that. Here it's set to dotted eighths. And just to spice it up, I've put a gate after it. Just to get it a little more staccato sounding. Here I've got a topper I want to add on to my drum loop. I'm sending to another bus with another instance of Objeq Delay on the return, set with the balance all the way to the wet signal. And here I'll bring it in. And we can click right on the objects to audition them. Or we can scroll to get blends between them. In this case, I'm going to click on the marimba and use that. Now I've set the frequency to where I like it for the effect I'm looking for. I want something kind of cowbellish sounding. And I have a fairly long decay here for the moment. And I have the material set so it's nice and muted kind of feel. I'm getting the nice ring of the harmonics with the formant set here. Now I'm going to bring in the delay. In this case, I've set it to a dotted quarter. And for modulation, I'm going to modulate the decay negative since it's fairly high with the triangle. And it's giving it that kind of go-go bell or cowbell type of effect where some notes are muted and some aren't. And I can control with the amount, the degree of how muted those generated notes are. And here with the sine wave, I'm going to modulate the material again, negative. And here the phase has a strong influence in how the sine wave interacts with the material. And I'm going to switch the delay mode to 2-tap. Make sure we're still at dotted quarters, so that I can pan those generated notes. Here I've got Objeq Delay 2 on the bass. I'm going to bring it in. Now it's weighted towards the wet signal, and I've got the object set here to the rectangular membrane. And you can hear when it's wet like this, there's a nice timbral variation of all the partials that are generated when we move from the membrane to the drum head, to the rigid plate, the string, the marimba, and the beam. So I've set up this modulator with a sine wave to modulate in positive only, because I'm starting at the bottom, the object type. So we get that nice kind of sweeping through it. And I have it set at half note with a half multiplier to get it as slow as possible, but still synced. And it sounds nice like that. Now I've got a second instance of Objeq Delay after here. And I bring this in. And here I'm using this only for the delay. I've got a really quick 2-tap delay set to 16th notes in psycho mode. So there's a bit of stereoizing of the delays. And I can dial up just a little bit of it. Here I've got Objeq Delay on this dance organ, and I'm going to use it to add some percussive brightness using the object module only. With the drum type, they all have different qualities, but I like that. And I can dial in as much as I want. And I want to modulate the frequency. So I want it to sweep around, but just a little bit. So I have this modulator set up with a triangular shape, targeting the frequency above and below the current value. And as I enable it, you'll see in the amount over here when it's going above and below. And if I dial it up, we get more of that sweeping sound. And I have some chaos that adds a bit of randomized variation to it as well. Here I have this on the reverb return, with only the object module on, and sweeping through the type. And I have it in positive polarity. A very big difference when you notch out the frequencies. Now I've got a second instance, which is set up the exact same way, but at a slightly different rate. So it's a nice phasing, flanging effect as it sweeps through these object types at different rates. So those are some ideas on how you can get the most out of the Objeq module's acoustic resonators to change the tonal color of your music.